Hi, fellas, Ben back again. Yeah, that's the condition of the Sherpa. Now, the thing is, I've already covered how to remove a fuel tank on another video. I believe that was when I was installing the aux lights, and hopefully that should help. But the removal of the fuel tank aside, which is not exactly something that should be attempted by people who are doing it for the first time. Once or twice, get it done by a mechanic, watch very carefully what to do, what not to do, and then maybe go about doing it. That being said, this video is going to be about this fella, the BMC air filter. Now, whoa, this is a heated topic of discussion on the internet, on all kinds of performance upgrade centers. This is something that is a debated topic. Do they make a difference? Do they add anything of value to this, to performance as such? And from over 20 years of experience, I used to sell them about 13 years ago, and I used to use them. Not BMC, K&N is what I've used. BMC came into the market somewhere around, I guess, 2010 or 11 is when this came into the market. But before that, we all used to use K&N filters. With high flow, so the number one myth that I need to bust now is with high flow filters comes lesser filtration, and that should technically do harm to the engine. That is an absolute lie. It doesn't work like that. And all these videos that I see where people put these they test these filters, filtration ability, and all that jazz. Where I think they're going wrong is, well, each one has a method of testing, but predominantly most of these videos that I've watched online where people are testing these, they test these filters not in a dynamic environment like the airbox. The airbox is so much more dynamic than the box setup that these guys make, where they have a stationary box with a constant velocity of air, and then they pour the dust particles on top of the air filter, and they test the filtration ability. Well, that is not how this airbox functions. The way this airbox sucks in air is very different from having a static suction method. So much more dynamic here, so much more I would say, if I'm not an engineer, but I'm guessing the airflow that happens here is so much more agitated, so much more, So what I'm trying to say is basically air doesn't get into this like that in straight rays, whereas air goes into this in the form of turbulent air, and then it comes out of it even more turbulent, I would say. This has a way of increasing velocity of air. So the air is not, it's not a straightforward filtration thing. It's a highly dynamic filtration media. There's a beautiful video that I watched about this, the filtration of these air filters years ago. I don't really remember when, but this was somewhere around 10 plus years ago, 10, 12 years ago when I watched the video. That guy clearly explains how the entire filter media is vibrating. This has about 3 to 4 layers of cotton gauze material, and dust doesn't enter like that straight through the filter. There isn't a constant suction velocity. The velocity the suction depends totally on the engine. So the engine, with all its strokes up and down, doesn't really suck in air in a straightforward fashion. There's a lot of turbulence that's being created because of the up and down movement of the piston and the suction. The suction isn't linear. That's what I'm trying to say. So when that happens, the entire air box and all the components inside are starting to vibrate. This experiences air going into it and in turbulence. There's a lot of turbulence that this experiences, and when you're talking about turbulent air, all this filter media starts to resonate, vibrate, and a vibrating filter media filters more than a static filter media. That is what the man said in the video, and that has proven to be true in my case, is because I've been running these fellows for almost 20 years, and they do not cause harm to the engine. No way. Whatever, this is in the end a high flow air filter. This can never beat a paper air filter in terms of filtration, straight up, no doubts there, no questions there. But does it send in enough particles to damage the engine, the piston rings and the seals and all that jazz? Definitely not. I don't think that is the case. From my experience, I've been running these. They leave a fine mist of dust inside every single time you use these fellas versus paper fellas. Paper fellas don't have that. So if you watch this, this is what I'm talking about. That mild dust mist layer, that you will definitely find after you've introduced these filters. You will not find that with the paper filters. The paper filters, the insides of the airbox will be squeaky clean, unless and until they're starting to get clogged or they have absorbed moisture and they're starting to punch through the holes, the new dust particles, they're starting to punch through. And once that happens, that is beyond the lifespan of the paper air filter, you'll start to see a lot of real bad dust getting accumulated in the airbox. That is not the case with this. This can go on forever and forever. The more dirty this gets, the more filtration this provides. And water, surprisingly, doesn't seem to harm this as much as it harms the paper filter. Just like how paper gets deteriorated in water, and cotton gauze, there's absolutely nothing that happens to cotton gauze. So cotton gauze is any day better in a rainy environment than paper. Well, that being said, so a turbulent air that runs into this creates turbulence, and all these layers of cotton, they are vibrating, they are resonating. There's a lot of vibration there, and that is a dynamic environment which filters better. And in my case, it has been proven true. 20 years of riding with high flow air filters, and I've never really encountered a problem. Now, coming to the second part, do these things actually make a difference in performance? They do when you have a restricted airflow business going on. Well, in this case, the air intake is somewhere, is the air intake. We'll just get to see that. And this particular air box, it's a very interesting design. So the lid out, nice and snug, very snug, and the air filter out. Again, nice and snug. Good rubber, decent air. Oh wow! So that is the air intake. The air intake is right above the radiator, I believe. That's where your air intake is. So all the dirty air comes in from over there, gets filtered from over here, gets sucked out from over here. The top is covered, the bottom is open. Dirty air from inside gets filtered, comes out here. Now, if you watch this, well, this is surprisingly nice. It's because this is more like a cold air intake system. You have all the cold air hitting the airbox from the front of the vehicle, and the vehicle moving in that direction. Nice and cold air being sucked from over here. Very nice, interesting. The vehicle moving in the front, the air hitting it, turbulent air hitting it, all these parts. First, a gush of air. High velocity, different amount of airflow. Low velocity, different amount of airflow. Firstly, the engine sucking in air, then different velocity of air, then all these components creating turbulence. and all that gets filtered through the air filter. So it's never, so if you watch again, if this was a linear setup, why would these fins bend? Look at that. Look at how many fins are closely packed together and how many start separating. Look at the different gaps. Why would this happen if it was a linear airflow system? So do not just quickly take the words of these people who test these filters and say that, these filters are not good enough to filter. They work very differently. What I'm saying is paper has any given day better filtration ability than that. There's no doubts about it. No matter what BMC or anybody claims, that is a clear winner as far as straightforward filtration goes. But when you talk about dynamic airflow filtration, highly turbulent airflow filtration, they both are almost neck to neck. I haven't had any problems using them for 20 years. Well, one more thing. Look at the wire mesh. The wire mesh is nice and wide just to hold the structure, and the paper is the major filter media. Whereas if you talk about these fellas are very different. The wire mesh is part of the filter media. It is going to definitely take care of bigger particles, sand and bigger particles that come in flying through the front, because there's a vehicle in front of you which is kicking a lot of dust and mud and sand. All that gets taken care of by this. This also keeps the filter media structure nice and healthy. And then you have 4 layers of cotton gauze vibrating at high frequency, taking care of the filtration part as well. There's a lot happening here. Easier to say that, these people do not know what they're talking about. So that's the filtration part of it. Now coming to the performance part of it. Sorry, I keep going off topic, but yeah. Well, that's the surface area. The entire surface area is, if you guys just look at it, look at the number of pleats on this. And if you talk about air having to go through all these pleats, that's some serious restriction. Now when that happens in a setup like that with a small intake, this is very different. I don't think this is going to make much of a difference on an airbox like this, because this is direct air injection from the outside, cold air intake, kind of cold air intake. So will this make a huge difference in an airbox like this? I do not know. But on the 411, this makes a world of a difference, because that's sucking in air from the rear. So the engine has to do all the work to suck in air from the rear. Here, it's more like direct injection. Air comes in from the front at high velocity. The engine does not really have to suck in air through great difficulty. So if they have a paper air filter being introduced here, then that would simply mean that the engine already is able to suck in enough air on its own. Something interesting struck me. No wonder when the vehicle, you're running it slow, your fuel efficiency goes down, because the velocity of the air reduces in the front. The filtration media here, paper, highly restrictive. So the amount of fuel that goes into the chamber, the ECU, puts out more fuel and lesser efficiency. The vehicle starts moving at a pace beyond 90 kmph, much better fuel economy. Interesting. That's because of high flow air coming in through the front and the engine being able to suck in all that air. Interesting. Just a thought. So the way they've calculated the air amount going into the airbox is at a certain speed. The peak efficiency is achieved at a certain speed of velocity, because you need a gush of air from the front. Interesting. So if you guys got what I was trying to say, it might help. This is an interesting airbox design. I don't think going to make much of a difference here, is because this is anyways like direct injection. All that this will do is keep have better intervals of cleaning, whereas this might get clogged up way too soon. This is what we used to do back in the days when we used to race. The easiest way to identify whether your airbox needs an air filter or not is to just let it open. Let it open and ride. And if the bike makes more power, then as a simple case of throwing in an air filter like that, which allows for better airflow. And um, if this is the restricting element, the moment you introduce paper air filter and the bike starts losing power, obvious that you need to get rid of this. That's the easiest way to identify whether the bike will make more power with or without the air filter. I am not an engineer. I am talking strictly from experience. This does no harm to the engine. Even if it were to, you're looking at long-term damage, maybe 1.5 lakh, 2 lakh kilometers, somewhere around that, with all the micro level dust getting in. 2 lakh kilometers is where you could expect something. And by then, if your pistons and rings are something that you're bothered about, with all the riding habits that most fellas have these days, they would have screwed up the crankcase. Very few people understand no riding. Surprisingly, people are audacious enough to buy a machine like this as their first bike and learn how to ride on a machine like this. That's the kind of audacity that's out there in the market now. So with that being said, throwing in an air filter and wondering about whether this will damage the engine's internals in 10 years is surreal, the human imagination. Anyways, let me just throw this in and yeah, now to see what side goes where. The stock air filter is the stock air filter is identical on both the sides. Absolutely no difference. And the BMC slightly different. There is a ridge here. There's nothing here. Yeah. Interesting. I'll just have to see which side works best. Yes, I'm going to try the cap and see if this works. Okay, that got the edge. And this was smoother. They're both the same, though the BMC filter has a little bit of a dent here and some texture on this side, whereas this side is nice and clean with the BMC badge. So I don't know which side should go where, but I think this because this is a flatter side. I think this is better off in the bottom than all this typed material, sorry, this embossed material. This embossed material might not give a snug fit at the bottom. So I'm going with this side at the bottom and this embossed bit on the top. Yeah. Super snug fit, and hence you don't see me use the K&N grease, the sealant grease, is because this is on both the sides a nice and tight snug fit, and I don't really need to use anything else like a grease to kind of make it waterproof. This is going to be nice and tight and waterproof. Well, that's the installation of the BMC air filter and all the explanation behind that. Let me quickly put things back together. Oh, one more thing. And that would be the finishing touches. Job done. Time to put back the tank and give this bike a nice twist of the throttle. I for sure know that this is not going to make any difference as far as performance is concerned. And this is the new filter. The new filter is definitely going to let in more dust. It'll take about 1,000 kilometers on Indian roads for it to achieve the right state of filtration. Yeah, so do not end up assuming that the moment you throw in a new filter, it's going to filter better. That's not the case. With any oiled high-flow air filter, it's the opposite. The new filter lets in more dust, takes about 1,500 kilometers for things to settle down, and then from 1,500 kilometers to 10,000 kilometers, or if you have enough experience, you'll know when it is time to re-oil. Between that time span is when this has maximum efficiency of filtration and airflow. Whereas this new, better, with time starts getting dirtier and dirtier and starts getting clogged and it becomes highly restrictive. So that's the case with this. Very different from the oil filters. Anyways, if this helped in any way, this particular video, clarify things. The BMC also sells these beautiful stickers. I put one on the windshield and I just simply love it. Looks amazing. And two more, maybe one on the tank as well. Yeah. So if this helped in any way, it helped. That's the entire intention. And this is not a filter that is come my way for. I'm not doing this to promote the filter. I purchased it with my own money and sells for 6,500 rupees. Quite expensive, but definitely. Between this and K&N, if the question is between this and K&N, what would be better? New, BMC better, filters better. Old, K&N better. K&N filters for longer periods. It has slightly higher airflow than BMC, from my experience. So K&N better in the long run. The cleaning intervals more spaced out on K&N. BMC, the cleaning intervals is a little more narrower, but slightly better filtration than K&N. Both these filters will not do any harm to the engine in terms of the particles that go in. Absolutely nothing of your concern. Do not be bothered by it, fellas. Yeah, so this helped, it helped. That's all there is to it. Ben signing out for now. Ciao.